I think their official statements have been quite clear that they support the multilateral system, that they support integration of China into the global economy, that they will work with other countries to do this. President Xi said this very clearly in Davos, I think 2 years ago, I think 2017. Last year at the 19th Party Congress, the message about reform was also quite clear. And last year at Boao, President Xi spoke and talked about how China would decisively stimulate domestic demand, shift towards domestic demand, and therefore encourage imports into China. And this year at the Belt and Road Forum, he made a speech again, and he talked about how China would liberalize and reform its system. So I take those statements very seriously because they come from the highest level, and I'm sure they will be followed up with legislation. But at the same time, I also know that in China, all issues are also looked at from a political perspective and from the perspective of stability and political leadership. And therefore, it's never a purely economic calculation. So, for example, if there's going to be a restructuring and therefore people displaced, and in China, when you say people displaced, you can be talking about millions of people and not just thousands of people. Then you have to make a judgment whether you are prepared to manage that upheaval and take care of these people who are displaced and be able to ride it through and come out in a better position economically and in a sustainable position politically. China has done that before. I mean, in the 80s, in the 90s, there was an earlier round of SOE reforms, massive displacements, tens of millions of people. In the northeast particularly, but also in the inland provinces.
Yes. During Premier Zhu Rongji's time.
During Premier Zhu Rongji's time. And it was done with an enormous amount of determination, but I think there must have been considerable resistance. I mean, in the nature of things, nobody will volunteer to lose his SOE job. But it was done. Now it's a different generation, and to do that again, you may or may not be able to do it in the same way. But I think the Chinese do know that these are problems which do need to be addressed, and if we don't address them, then progressively they become more difficult to deal with later on.